Welcome to The Most Important Thing. I'm Danielle DeMarco Neufeld.
And I'm Greg Neufeld. And together we're exploring how ambitious, busy families can build culture at home.
Because after all, family is the most important thing.
Welcome back to season 2 of The Most Important Thing.
Yeah, I'm pumped. So today is our third episode of season 2, since
That's
we're
right.
calling it that now, where we are going through the Wholehearted Parenting Manifesto. And today we're talking about courage.
Yeah, it's funny how we usually talk about courage like it's this big dramatic thing, storming the castle or making that game-winning shot.
I literally think of Gladiator every time we say the word courage.
Yeah, for sure. Gladiator 1.
And Braveheart and like all the
Yes,
things.
all the things. Very few shirts.
I guess pretty masculine,
Yeah,
honestly.
not-
Maybe we can unpack that in a different episode.
Yeah, but just being honest, just showing up, that seems to be the real definition of courage. Showing up and just starting way smaller.
Showing up as your whole self.
That's right.
You know what, Greg? Why don't you read what Brene writes?
Ooh, thank you. I'd love to. Specifically in the manifesto, Brene writes, "We will practice courage in our family by showing up, letting ourselves be seen, and honoring vulnerability. We will share our stories of struggle and strength. There will always be room in our house for both." Stories of struggle and strength. That reminds me of something, but I can't put my finger on it.
Episode 2, Family Stories.
From season 1.
Look at that. Is that like a reverse Easter egg? It's something that is, I don't know, foreshadowing?
Throwback.
A throwback. Okay.
Yeah, it's a throwback. But we're just building a web here, We're going
seems like it.
sequentially, but we're building a web.
It seems like it. Cool. All right. So we will practice courage. In her latest book, Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown defines courage for us, and she defines it by returning to its original Latin root cor, meaning heart. She writes, in one of its earliest forms, the word courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. And throughout her research and teachings, Brene has emphasized that true courage is about vulnerability and is closely tied to emotional exposure, uncertainty, and risk. I love this idea that courage starts small and can grow really big. And so today I kind of have a hot take on courage. While I really do agree with her reflections that to be courageous is to allow ourselves to be seen and vulnerable, personally, I have found that there are a couple of mindset shifts that need to come first. They're more like precursors, if you will, to lay the foundation of getting into the habit of being courageous. And those are what I would like to talk about today. It's really this idea that in order to have courage persistently, I think I needed two things. The first is to know that preparation leads to confident, courageous performance. And the second is that life is just one big learning opportunity. And most people, Greg will say everyone, mess up all the time. And the people that are successful are actually just taking more at bats.
Yes.
So these are two things that I think that I didn't know until probably 15 years ago, and I've learned more and more over time, but that have really helped me begin my journey of courage and vulnerability. And that when we talk about family culture, there are certain things that I want our kids to know earlier. And this is one of them. And so I think it's really important when we speak about the emotional wiring of our home that we talk about not just being courageous, but we talk about how to be courageous. And I don't think that it's super easy for everyone to just show up and be seen.
No.
And so how do we even get there? How do we even get the at bat? And that's what I would really like to spend some time on today. The author Neil Strauss has this great quote that I think about anytime that I'm starting something new and wanting to be courageous. It's, you don't need to be gifted. You just need to have enough commitment to accept being bad at something for as long as it takes to get good at it.
I love that. I've got a similar reminder on my phone from Michael Jordan, and he says that work ethic eliminates fear. Stress comes from being unprepared.
Yeah, so let's teach our kids to prepare.
That's right.
All right. So I would like to suggest that the most important thing about courage is that courage needs scaffolding. And specifically, when we prepare together and embrace life as one big learning opportunity, we build a family culture that makes showing up courageously not just possible, but expected. Sound like a worthy goal?
I mean, I think that we're really doing it. It's not perfect, but I feel very strongly that this topic is one that we can show up for our kids and that our kids can show up for one another extremely well over a long enough arc.
Great. I can't wait to hear your experiment ideas.
All right.
So let's dig into how we develop these shifts within our family. I have been reading Bill Belichick's new book, The Art of Winning, and it is amazing. Every once in a while, Ray Dalio's Principles, books like this come up and I just devour them. For those of you who don't know, he holds the record for the most Super Bowl wins, 6, as head coach for the New England Patriots, as well as 2 more during his time as the defensive coordinator at the New York Giants, for a record combined total of 8 Super Bowl victories as a coach and coordinator. He is incredible.
He really is. Love him or hate him, you got to respect him.
And he has spent a lot of time in the arena,
Literally.
right? He has spent a lot of time both being courageous and supporting his teams, his family, if you will, in how to be courageous, especially in high pressure moments.
Yeah, the formidable Patriots that he coached, I feel like, always showed up with their full selves, completely prepared. And in order to beat them, you had to catch them not in an unforced error, but you had to win the game because they were doing it not just for themselves, but you could tell they were doing it for a higher purpose, for each other, for their coach, for their team, for the fans. And they were doing it over and over and over again for season after season. And that kind of consistency is definitely a habit of courage.
Okay, so let's talk about courage the way that Bill Belichick might. Number 1, prepare together. This is the idea that consistent and deliberate practice leads to confident performance. Bill says practice execution becomes game reality. So just as Belichick prepares his team for every scenario, families can rehearse situations before the heat is on. And I think this can start small by role-playing moments of courage, as small as standing up to a friend who has been maybe saying not nice things to you. But it can also get bigger. And so a key aspect of this that is coming up in our life today is teaching kids that preparation is fundamental to success, that you have agency in outcomes. So last episode, I mentioned a spelling bee, and that's because Hunter has been very anxious about how she will perform at one of her first ever competitions in school. And about a week before the spelling bee, she was saying, I'm a terrible speller. I'm going to look stupid. Basically feeling as though she had absolutely no control over the situation. And we had a conversation about practice. And before you knew it, she mastered every word that was going to be on the spelling bee. So I think that while perfection is unattainable, it's important to teach that diligent practice gives you what you need, the assurance and the confidence that you need to perform courageously.
It was a remarkable transformation.
Well, hopefully it's the first of many. I think you and I see, and I've heard this before, but Joe Rogan talks about this all the time, that CrossFit or martial arts shows you unequivocally that when you put in hard work, you improve.
Yes.
You cannot deny the improvement that comes with consistent hard work and deliberate practice.
Yeah. There's a real data flywheel there. The inputs and the outputs are all yours, and you're putting in the work and you're seeing exactly the results that you deserve.
Yeah. And I think that knowledge helps me show up more courageously throughout my life. And it's something that I really want to instill in our children.
Yeah. I also think that having a team, and a team that you believe in, where everybody believes not just in themselves, but in the higher purpose, instills a lot of courage. I know that working together with you, I have a lot of courage in how I show up in the world, specifically in areas where I know that you have it. And I believe that you feel the same way in areas where I have it. And so we show up as a team much more confidently than in areas of discipline that aren't necessarily our true comfort zones.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, one of the things that really embodies that within our family culture today is our family cheer.
Yes.
I love that the kids started saying our family cheer before they go to school in the morning, because I do think that they walk out the door with the power of the Neufelds behind them.
That's right. Episode 4, Family Values.
There you go. Okay, another thing that I hadn't heard before, but I love, is that it's important to remind each member of our family that they have a lead role in whatever event it is. So Belichick says, remember that you are one of the reasons that this moment is big. You are not here by accident. Your work brought you to this high stakes moment. First of all, how inspiring is that?
So inspiring.
And so he's talking about the Super Bowl, right? I might be talking about a hockey tournament, right? But regardless of how high stakes it might be in the world, to the member of your family, it can be high stakes, right? And so this idea that you have agency and that you are part of what makes this moment special and big is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, there's a lot of imposter syndrome going around in this world, and that's not something that I want our kids to have to carry.
Or at least to know what to do with it when it shows up.
Yes.
Because it can be one of those both ands. It's like, I am feeling this way, like an imposter, like I don't belong here. And I know that I am part of what makes this a big moment.
Yeah. And hard work eliminates imposter syndrome.
I don't know if it'll ever eliminate it fully for me, but I do think it helps.
It does help.
Cool. And then finally on this, practice how to respond to disappointment. So a lost game or a bad spelling bee outcome or a no from a friend. Belichick says champions rehearse the hard stuff. And so I think one thing that I saw the other day when I was at Hunter School facilitating math games was a little boy at the end of the game when he lost. He looked at his friend and he said, "Good game." And he put out his hand to shake hands. And I was like, that is some excellent sportsmanship that he didn't just make up on his own right now. Like, that definitely was role played in his family. And I would like, when we talk about experiments, for this to be something that we bring into our family too, is good sportsmanship.
Champions rehearse the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Let's print that and put it above our front door.
So when kids know what hard moments might feel like and that they have their family behind them, they are more likely to step in with courage. And then the second takeaway, embrace life as one big learning opportunity. I think this really builds upon the idea of champions rehearsing the hard stuff. You know, one of my favorite Peloton instructors, Jess Sims, she likes to say, it's not failure, it's feedback, it's redirection. And I absolutely love that because it does. It speaks to life as one big learning opportunity. And when I can look at a mistake or a failure that I've made and see it as an opportunity to improve and shift the focus from, well, acknowledge the disappointment, but then shift the focus to improvement, because there always is another opportunity, it enables courage to keep going.
Yeah.
And Bill echoes this mindset throughout the book, where he says, you cannot think of big tests and triumphs as final in any respect. There are no endpoints in winning, period.
That's a great one. What did Ken Griffin say? Success is 2 times from where I am today, but I feel like I'm a winner. Something like that.
Okay. Find that quote.
Yeah.
Put it in. No, you mentioned Ken, and I worked for him for a while, and I loved the way he would speak about a lot of investment strategies, but the market neutral equity strategy in particular. He would say, regardless of the outcome, positive or negative, you want to look for how to improve the process. And so it was all about building feedback loops in order to iterate on the process, figure out how you can improve. And again, Belichick totally echoes this idea when he says, to reach your ultimate goal, you cannot try to master a result. You must master a process. A good process results in good habits, and consistent good habits results in dependability. Therefore, good results will follow.
Ain't that the truth?
It is, but I didn't know this 25 years ago. I played competitive sports growing up. Nobody ever told me that I had to focus on the process.
No. In business, it's the process. In taking care of your body, it's the process.
In parenting, it's the process.
It's the process.
Because I mess up constantly. If I can make amends and I can try to do better, I know that I will have plenty more opportunities with our children to improve. One thing that Belichick mentioned in his book that I hadn't heard before comes from Roger Federer's 2024 Dartmouth commencement address. He says, in the 1,526 singles matches that I played in my career, I won almost 80% of them. But what percentage of points do you think I won in those matches? Only 54%. In other words, even the top-ranked tennis players, and I would say the greatest tennis player in the world, barely win more than half of the points they play. And he says, when you lose every second point on average, you learn not to dwell on every single shot. So if it's good enough for Roger Federer and it's good enough for Belichick, it is going to be good enough for the Neufelds. So let's talk about how to apply this always be learning or continuous improvement to our family. The first is to normalize mistakes. And this goes back to our stories episode, our family money episode, so episodes 2 and 8. But Brene has this great statement that I heard in a podcast of hers not too long ago where she says normalization is the antidote to shame. Letting our whole family know, letting it be known within our family that mistakes, failures, setbacks are inevitable.
Right.
Everyone experiences them, and what differentiates you is how you handle them and how you move on, what you do next.
I love that.
And that's where the courage comes in, right?
Right.
Once you know that mistakes happen for everyone, you are able to be courageous in getting back out there. Okay. And then one other element that I love thinking about is how do you manage defeat when you are not winning?
That's right. I mean, I can really see how easy it is for parents to get the wrong message from observing their kids winning and losing. And that message is like, oh, they're good at this. They need to work on this. But I don't want to protect them from being bad at something. I can see how easy it is to want that, but that's not what I want. If they never get to be bad at it, they'll never stick around long enough to get good. And so that kind of flips the goal for me. Instead of helping them succeed, I just want to help them stay in it long enough to grow.
Yeah, accept being bad at something for as long as it takes to get good at it.
Hopefully we're modeling that with this podcast.
That's right. We're trying, guys. Iterating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's it. When it comes to courage, for me to build the habit of courage and vulnerability, it takes scaffolding. And particularly, it comes down to preparing together and embracing life as one big learning opportunity as a family. This is a topic so near and dear to my heart. I hope you can feel the passion that I have in it. I love talking about a process orientation and seeing life as one big learning opportunity. I also so believe that practice makes progress and that discipline is how I personally can differentiate. I'm not the smartest, I'm not the strongest, but I am a very disciplined person, and I have seen amazing outcomes in my life through deliberate practice. And it is something that I very strongly want to imbue in our family culture.
Beautifully said.
Okay, so what experiments are you interested in running with regards to courage and how to practice it within our family? What can we commit to today?
Well, it sounds like a lot of the experiments that we're running have a through line to courage already. So specifically family values, family stories, and to a degree, family meetings as an opportunity to share when somebody was courageous. So through compliments and appreciations, where we saw courage, not just where we saw somebody being kind. Courage is sometimes has a lot of bad behavior before courage because you get amped up about the thing that you don't want to do and then you do it anyway. And recognizing that courage in our kids, after that tantrum, you went out and you did the hard thing.
You practice deliberately.
You practice deliberately. So I do think that those experiments are fluid right now, and this is a good notice and an opportunity for us to show up noticing courage specifically and calling that out. But what else comes to mind?
I would say the practicing how to respond to disappointment is one that I definitely want to take away. So role playing what happens when things don't go properly. And this isn't meant to like wallow in a loss or in self-pity, but just to acknowledge the disappointment.
Yeah.
And remain noble and look for the opportunity for improvement.
Yeah. I love this 54% of points
Right.
won. And I'm wondering, what about writing down the things that didn't go our way?
Interesting. Tell me more.
For example, we recently at work, we had a successful fundraise, I would say. And how many people did we talk to in order to achieve that goal? I mean, we probably converted 10%, maybe 8%.
Yeah, 54 would not
of the
be
conversations
correct.
that we had. And we don't need to write all of those little things down, but saying, and pointing to 92% of the people we talked to
said no.
It didn't even
Ultimately.
need to be, no, it just weren't a fit. But we made that next call. We sent that next email and we did the next right thing. And look at us. We got to our goal in spite of and because of that process.
Right. Because we focused on the process.
Exactly.
And when we received outcomes that we didn't necessarily want, we looked at ways that we could improve.
Yeah. And then looking back, I don't remember any of those conversations that were no's.
It doesn't really matter,
It doesn't
right?
matter. I
Doesn't
just
really
remember
matter.
who we're partnered with and who we're working with.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I don't know about like a loss board,
Yeah.
but I do think that this idea of Roger Federer only winning 54% of the points that he played in his life is one of those key lessons that I really want our kids to know as soon as possible.
Yes.
By the way, it holds true. The best portfolio managers in equities at Citadel were right 54% of the time also.
Yeah.
So it's cross-disciplinary.
It sure is.
Right? So this is about singles and doubles and having lots of at-bats. And lots of sports analogies here. But that's how you win. And I think that it's not just about winning, but it's about how you build confidence to show up courageously, repeatedly.
Yeah. We just need to normalize the losses. It's not necessarily a loss board, I agree, but normalizing the losses and talking about wins and losses not as a bad thing, but as a part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's just try to talk about, let's play the tape all the way through and not telling the kids to just be courageous or be brave or go out there, but to talk about, no, you have the opportunity to practice and you did practice and therefore you can be courageous, right?
Yeah. And I do like those 3 questions that have a through line to Belichick, that have a through line to Bruce Feiler. What did we do well? What can we do better next time? And what experiments can we run?
Yeah.
But those are the right questions to ask ourselves, to our kids, at work, our colleagues, to our clients, everything.
Yeah, those 3 questions keep coming up. And I think that they're a very useful framework to remain flexible and continuously improve.
That's right. Well, here's to that. This is a topic we could talk for hours about and read many, many more books about. But I do think that embodying this for our kids, for ourselves, and showing up as a team, talking about the team spirit that we have and why we're winners and why it's okay to be a winner and also to lose sometimes. 50,
Yeah.
50,
It's more like
46% of the time.
be a player is
Yeah.
the way I think about it. Be in the arena.
Be in the arena.
But when you develop good habits and practice deliberately, you tend to get good results persistently.
That's right.
And so that really is what winning is, right? So 54% of the time.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Totally.
All right. I think we can leave it here.
Cool. Love you, Goosey.
Love you, Goosey.
Hey guys, if you're still here, you're definitely our kind of person. Thanks for spending this time with us on the most important thing. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and share it with someone else building family culture on purpose. Hey guys, if you're still here, you're definitely our kind of person. Thanks for spending this time with us on the most important thing. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and share it with someone else building family culture on purpose.